This video is brought to you by Squarespace. This video is about lens filters, in particular two types, variable NDs and diffusion filters. Oh, and FYI, I do not and will not refer to them as VNDs, it just makes it sound like I'm reviewing an STD. That's in a different video. Originally this was going to be a nice and simple video looking at the version 2 Polar Pro PMVND filters. As I've used the original ones almost exclusively since they came out, they are really superb. But they're not cheap. The questions I originally wanted to ask was really just, are they still worth the money? Are these new versions worth buying if you've already got the original ones or looking to buy them for the first time? Now that's where things kind of get a bit complicated, which to be frank is what always happens whenever I make a video on YouTube. It's pretty much impossible for me to do a simple, quick video about a product. Look, I could just tell you just how awesome they are, but this video would be kind of pointless. Look, I'm sure there's loads of great videos out there who are just talking about them and are fantastic and could be just what you want. And I'm just going to get my opinion out of the way straight away. They're superb, they're easily one of the best I've used, and if you already have the originals, do you need to upgrade? Well, no. They're the same optics with just some really nice mechanical and practical improvements. So I guess I could end the video just there, but I think that would be too short for Squarespace, who are the sponsor of this video. And also I get no satisfaction making something like that. If I can't be creative and do something unique, then I just won't waste my time making it. Okay, now let's get on to the ethical side of things, which is always important to address. Polar Pro did send me the filters free of charge, without any request for a review. They also did send me the original ones, but they haven't paid me to make this video. So there's no financial incentive for me to do anything fancy here. And there's zero monetary benefit for me to tell you that they are awesome, which they are. I don't even know who this McKillen guy is, so it's not like I owe him a favour as a mate or anything. Somebody said he's Canadian, which doesn't really help me because everybody's Canadian on YouTube. Is he the camera conspiracies guy, you know, Tone? Well, I certainly never met the fella, and he's definitely never been to my DSLR workshop in Toronto about 10 years ago. And I absolutely have never done 2 power video events with him in Northern Ireland, or taken a weird 10mm selfie with him in Las Vegas. So, not a clue. Anyway, let's refocus back onto what this video will actually be about. Looking at the new filters on their own is pointless. I need to see how they compare to other variable NDs, both the cheaper ones and the more expensive ones. Wait, are there more expensive ones? I think I need to Google that. I would be really happy if I never had to use a variable ND in my life again. They are a pain. All filters are a pain. It was only when I got the 5D Mark II that I find myself needing them, as all my previous cameras in the 20 years prior had internal ND filter wheels inside them. My Sony FX9 has the most amazing variable ND inside the camera. It's wonderful. It's probably the greatest camera innovation ever. Maybe that's a bit over the top, but it is really wonderful to use. I use them as I need them to get my exposure, so I can have the correct shutter speed and the aperture of my choice, so I can get a depth of field as I want it to be. Look, fixed NDs tend to be better quality optically, but what a faff it is to keep switching between them, hence variable ND. I bought so many of them in the past 10 years, way too many. Some good, some great, mostly shockingly bad. As I said, these new Polar Pro ones are superb, but there's also something new that they've released alongside them. There's now 2 types, the normal Signature Edition and the ones called Mist, which have diffusion built into them. Let's switch over to Mist. This is Mist. So that's when I realised this was going to be just too big for one video. So yeah, it's going to be 2 videos for this one thing. I'm sure I could have done it in one video. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick look at the changes to the filters, as they are very clever and unique. But my main comparison of the different variable NDs is going to be in the second video. It also makes sense as I'm just about to head off to Greece to do another documentary about the cat charity in Sagathos, and it gives me a great chance to use them in a lovely sunny place as opposed to my house or down by Richmond Riverside again. So what's new in version 2 of the variable NDs? Well, the case for starters, it's metal. I mean, look how lovely it is. It filter screws in. And that plastic rubbish here, and the rubber filter cap is much improved and really clings to the filter. You can also in theory put your actual lens cap onto the front of that, but I don't really recommend it. It's just not secure enough. In fact, I don't actually use plastic lens caps anymore anyway, because I just lose them. I use either the covered lens condoms or the much more expensive Polar Pro ones, which I did buy. They didn't send me them, although I could do with a few more. We now have hard stops on the filters for each strength. Look, I have filters with strength markings on and hard end stops, but nothing like this. It's almost like a clicking iris, and this is really nice. They are still split into 2 strengths rather than have one VND with a massive range, as those types don't generally perform as well, and you often get that crossover pattern when you're trying to push it too far. Having them split into 2 means they perform fantastically through their entire range. Of course, they come in various different filter diameters, but look, unless you're Elton John, the Sultan of Brunei, Peter McKinnon, you're not going to get these for every single filter diameter that you own. Most people, I really should just recommend just getting one for the largest diameter that you have. My largest is 140mm, but of course I use a matte box for that. But for normal lenses, it's 82mm. Yeah, it does mean for some lenses, it's the dreaded step-up rings, but with the amazing Revo ring that I did a video on recently, you can now get a variable step-up ring for your variable ND. Yes, a VSR for your VND. It's always important to see the sound, establish what it is. That purring that you're going to hear frequently is either going to be Lollipop or one of the other guys. Perm machine. Anyway, it's good to establish the sound. Diffusion filters are one of the most commonly used types of filters. I mean, normally used for like portraity and talking heads, but they can also add a really interesting atmosphere to the shots, and they can also make that image look a lot more filmic, reducing that digital harshness. Look, I use that word filmic, right? This is the word to describe something more organic looking, like celluloid, not cinematic, as I mean, what does that mean? Who uses that word? It was after watching a recent video by Brandon Lee that I decided to try out diffusion filters again. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Look, I've been doing quite a few more YouTube videos recently, of course, the way things are. And if you're going to be looking at my face on a 65-inch 4K screen, you're going to thank me for using them. I've spoken countless times about how much I hate overly sharpened images that modern cameras often give us. Some let us adjust the strength, and others don't. It's detail that I want, not sharpness. Look, watch the video which is up there. I explain the difference between the two. That being said, I don't want too much detail on certain things, like when I'm filming people. But sometimes you do want to show every pore, like this video of my dad that I made with the Blackmagic 4K production camera. That's quite a short name for them. Here I just wanted it to be really super gritty. It's actually my dad's birthday as I'm filming this, and he's not in the best of health right now, so any positive thoughts for him, I'd be very grateful. When filming people, yeah, you could smear this stuff, Vaseline, over your lens filter, not the actual lens, please. It looks okay. You're going to get quite a thin layer of it. It's very diffused, isn't it? It's certainly cheaper than buying filters. Vaseline. Link in the description below. For me, diffusion needs to be subtle, almost imperceptible. There's nothing worse than cutting between two people where one has a ridiculous amount of diffusion and the other one doesn't. Actually, there is something worse than that. It's what people do to their faces when they take selfies. We're flesh and blood. We're not plastic. We're not autons. Less is more. Although more can also be better than less sometimes. It's that sweet spot that you're after. And what that is really totally dependent on the subject that you're filming and of course your taste. You're not trying to make your image soft, you're trying to make, well, hair, skin more flattering. Not flawless, because that's unrealistic, just more flattering in a natural way. A diffusion filter creates a haze-like effect by having patterns etched into the filter surface or sometimes within the actual glass. The stronger the pattern, often the stronger the effect. They do tend to reduce the contrast and can give a nice pleasing roll-off on the highlights and even sometimes in the shadows. The most well-known diffusion filters are the Diffusion Pro Mist ones. The Quarter Black Pro Mist is one of the most popular ones, but I think I've got one somewhere, I just couldn't find it. All I could find was this way too strong Black Pro Mist one. It's just over the top. Also, the longer your lens, the stronger that diffusion will appear. And with heavier ones, be careful about using wider lenses because you're going to lose fine detail. Of course, your lighting is what's going to really make things look flattering to start with and then add diffusion. But be careful how you do light things. If you've got really strong, harsh light, it's not ideal. And if you have light sources in shot, you can get halation around the edges, which sometimes you want. Stronger filters look a bit like fog. This is known as a blooming effect, which I sadly don't have trademarked. Missed opportunity. The diffusion in the Polar Pro Mist variable NDs is actually pretty subtle. It has its own diffusion pattern, so I can't compare it exactly to any other filters, but the amount of diffusion sits somewhere between a Black Pro Mist 1/8 and 1/4. I'm glad it's not too strong, as that would be just too specialised and less useful. One of my favourites is this, the Diffusion Satin one. And this is the weakest of the three satin filters. It does nice flattering things to my skin in a nice natural way. Detail of the image remains, but it gives us a somewhat more filmic look, away from that clinical digital look that's so common. See, I use that word filmic again. The Diffusion Black Diffusion Effects filter comes in a single strength. And yeah, it's nice and subtle. It's also one of the more affordable of the filters from Diffusion. One filter I've used a number of times in recent videos is this one here, the Diffusion Glimmer Glass. This is the #1 strength. So in the middle, I think there's 2 weaker ones and 3 stronger ones. It lowers the contrast with a nice roll off into the shadows. Also gives a nice little sparkle to my skin. I wonder if I use the strongest one, I would end up looking like a Twilight vampire. Must give that a try sometime. If I ever made my own line of diffusion filters, I think I'd probably call them something like Blooming Nice Filters, or maybe, I don't know, Cinebloom. Excuse me while I phone my lawyer. Whilst we wait for my lawyer to pick up the phone, here's a message from the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Until about 5 years ago, my website and blog was all this big mess. I then split it up into 2 separate things. Having the part where people can hire me separate from the actual blog was essential. And with Squarespace and their templates and how easy it is to use, it's an absolute joy to maintain. I mean, look, even Peter McKinnon's website is Squarespace. I mean, come on, get 10% off your own Squarespace site or domain in the description below.
Please leave your message.
Annoyingly, the moment Cinebloom filters were announced, literally the day after I filmed everything. How irritating is that? So yes, I've redone it all. I have them now, as you can see, and this is the 10% one. There's also a 20% one, so it's stronger. I prefer this one. It's the most usable of them, as the effect is way less pronounced, but still does a really nice job of gently softening the image and helping my knackered, almost 50-year-old skin look vaguely better. So this is the 20% strength. It's pretty strong, isn't it? Looks like a bit fogged up. I definitely prefer the 10% one. Maybe I'll use this at some point, especially if I'm looking really, really I've also got their variable ND filters, and I will be seeing how well they stack up against Peter McKinnon's VNDs in my follow-up video. You can of course do digital diffusion, and the results can be okay sometimes. Cosmo from Red Giant helps even out your skin, and it's especially good if that skin is blotchy and we have different colours. Optical filters can't fix that, only makeup can, so in a way it's a little bit like digital makeup. Diffusion filters are something you should definitely have in your kit. Which one? It's up to you. Should you get this new mist one? I really like there's a nice subtle diffusion in them, and they're great for filming people when you need to bring that exposure down, as well as having that variable ND part. And not having to stack your filters is a definite plus. The only thing is, it would be so nice if there was a clear one. I don't think there is just a clear one. So you want to match your diffusion in places which you don't want to use a variable ND on, you can't. So I think they really do need to have that. If you're unsure of which of the two types to get, the mist ones or the normal ones, then I would suggest going for the normal ones, to be honest with you. Simply because you can add a diffusion filter on top if needed, whereas you can't take the diffusion away. But if you are Elton John, then just get them all for every single filter diameter. We'll find out more if they are worth the money in the second video, and how they stack up against the Moment ones, and even cheaper ones like the freeware ones, which I bought especially for this test. And I'm also going to try out some really cheap ones alongside. The thing is, with these really cheap ones, you can actually get an unintentional diffusion effect. It's more of an overall softening, really. What's going to be really key in the comparison is just how much of a colour shift there is, and how well they work on the end of a telephoto lens, as that's where a lot of them really do go soft. But yeah, not in this video. You're gonna have to wait until part 2 to find out. Oh, and before I go, Peter, if you are watching, do you remember after that workshop of mine that you attended about 10 years ago, what you said to me? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was roughly along the lines of, Philip, thanks so much for today. If I ever become a super successful YouTuber with millions of subscribers and then get my own line of VNDs by Polar Pro, which may even have some diffusion in them at some point, then I will give you 20% cut for my profits for them. No, 30%. No, 50%. Yes, 50%. I swear this will happen on the life of the most treasured Canadian of all time, William Shatner. Well, that's what he said. I wonder if it was filmed. I'll have to have a look through my archive. I hope so. Quick disclaimer, this is called a British sense of humour. It's done in a very affectionate way. Go watch some British TV. You'll understand a bit better.